What if I told you that most women have been trying to impress men in all the wrong ways? That after hearing from 30,000 men across different ages, cultures, and relationship stages, the biggest thing they crave in bed has almost nothing to do with what women usually focus on. Not looks, not tricks, not even experience. And once you understand this, you'll realize why some women leave a man feeling deeply satisfied, while others, who seem to do everything right, are quietly forgotten. Here's the truth no one really says out loud. Men don't open up about intimacy easily. But when they do, when the ego drops and honesty comes in, they reveal something surprisingly emotional. What they want isn't pressure, it isn't perfection, it isn't a performance, it's a feeling that changes how close they feel to you and how strongly they bond afterward. And this is where it gets interesting, because the women who naturally create that feeling, they're not trying harder, they're not copying anyone else, they're doing something subtle, almost invisible, but incredibly powerful. Something that makes a man feel seen, relaxed, and chosen all at once. And when that happens, satisfaction isn't forced, it happens naturally in a moment. I'm going to share the 5 things these 30,000 men kept saying again and again, the real needs that turn intimacy into connection and connection into desire that lasts. And fair warning, once you hear these, you'll never look at attraction, confidence, or intimacy the same way again. Because this isn't about pleasing a man. It's about understanding the psychology that makes him feel deeply fulfilled, and why the woman who understands this never has to compete for his attention. Stay with me. This part changes everything. One of the most powerful and misunderstood truths that came out of listening to 30,000 men is this: the deepest satisfaction doesn't come from access, availability, or even attraction. It comes from being chosen. And there is a quiet but critical difference between the two. Many men describe moments where intimacy felt technically fine, even enjoyable. Why? Because in those moments, they felt like they were simply included in the situation, not intentionally selected. Being allowed feels neutral. Being chosen feels personal, and men are far more emotionally driven by that distinction than they're often given credit for. To feel chosen means a man senses that you want him specifically, not because it's convenient, not because he showed up, not because it's expected, but because in that moment your attention, desire, and presence are intentionally directed toward him. This isn't about saying anything explicit or dramatic. It's about intention. It's about the subtle signals that say, I see you and I want you here. What surprised many of the men in this group was how rarely they felt that feeling. They talked about how powerful it was when a woman made them feel actively desired rather than passively accepted. A look that lingers, a moment where she initiates closeness without hesitation, a sense that she's not distracted, not rushing, not mentally elsewhere. These moments create an emotional imprint that stays with a man long after the moment itself ends. And here's why this matters so much. When a man feels chosen, his defenses soften. He stops trying to prove himself, he stops performing, he stops overthinking. Instead, he settles into the experience with confidence and presence. That emotional shift changes the entire dynamic. Satisfaction becomes mutual, natural, and deeply connected. For women, this can be incredibly freeing, because feeling chosen doesn't require you to do more, it requires you to be more intentional. It's not about impressing him, it's about expressing genuine desire in a way that feels authentic to you. When your attention is focused, when your body language is open, when your energy says, I'm here with you, a man feels it instantly. Many men admitted that this feeling of being chosen was rare enough that when it happened, it stood out powerfully. They remembered the woman, they remembered how they felt around her, and more importantly, they wanted to return to that feeling, not because she tried harder, but because she made him feel wanted without making him feel pressured. This is also where confidence plays a crucial role. A woman who chooses a man does so calmly, without seeking validation in return. She isn't asking, is this okay? Or am I doing this right? Her confidence communicates safety. It tells him he doesn't need to guess or second guess. He knows where he stands, and that clarity is intoxicating. When a man feels chosen, he feels grounded. When he feels grounded, he connects more deeply. And when he connects more deeply, satisfaction stops being about the moment and starts being about the bond. This is why the men who spoke about their most fulfilling experiences rarely talked about technique or performance. They talked about how it felt to be wanted, how rare it was, and how powerful it became when it happened. Understanding this shifts everything. Because the woman who knows how to make a man feel chosen doesn't compete with others. She doesn't chase attention. She creates a presence that makes a man feel unmistakably, confidently, intentionally selected, and that feeling more than anything else is what keeps him emotionally engaged, deeply satisfied, and wanting more. When men talk about what truly satisfies them, one theme surfaced again, often quietly, sometimes with surprise even to themselves. It wasn't excitement, it wasn't novelty, it was emotional safety. And for many men, this was the first time they had ever put that feeling into words. Emotional safety means a man feels free to be present without fear of judgment. It means he doesn't feel evaluated, measured, or silently compared to someone else. In moments of closeness, many men carry an invisible pressure to perform, to impress, to get it right. That pressure is exhausting. And when it's present, connection becomes shallow, no matter how intense the moment might look from the outside. The men who described their most satisfying experiences talked about something very different. They spoke about moments where they felt accepted as they were, where there was no tension in the air, no sense that they were being watched for mistakes. In those moments, their guard dropped. And when a man's guard drops, something powerful happens. He becomes emotionally available. This is where many women unintentionally misunderstand desire. They assume intensity comes from challenge or unpredictability. But while excitement can spark attraction, safety is what allows intimacy to deepen. A man who feels emotionally safe doesn't disconnect afterward. He doesn't retreat, and he bonds. Emotional safety is communicated through small but meaningful cues. A relaxed presence, a tone that feels warm instead of demanding, a response that says, "You're okay here." When a woman isn't rushing the moment or mentally checking out, a man feels it. When she isn't critiquing herself or him internally, the space between them softens. What's especially important is that emotional safety isn't created by reassurance alone. It's created by non-judgment. Many men said that the fastest way for them to disconnect was feeling like they were being assessed or compared. Even subtle signals, impatience, tension, distraction can make a man feel like he's falling short. And once that feeling enters, presence disappears. On the other hand, when a woman brings calm confidence and emotional openness, it signals something profound. You don't need to prove yourself here. That message allows a man to stop performing and start connecting. And connection is where real satisfaction lies. Interestingly, many men admitted they didn't even realize how much they needed emotional safety until they experienced it. But once they did, it changed their standard. They wanted intimacy that felt grounding, not draining. They wanted to leave the moment feeling closer, not uncertain. For women, this is incredibly empowering, because creating emotional safety doesn't require perfection. It requires awareness. It's about being present without pressure. It's about allowing the moment to unfold naturally without trying to control it or rush it toward an outcome. When emotional safety is present, desire doesn't fade, it deepens. A man becomes more attentive, more expressive, more emotionally invested, not because he's being pushed there, but because he feels safe enough to go there on his own. This is why emotional safety is such a powerful, often invisible attraction force. It doesn't scream, it doesn't demand, but it leaves a lasting impression. A man may forget specific moments, but he will remember how safe he felt with you. And that feeling quietly draws him back. Because at the end of the day, the men who feel most satisfied aren't the ones who experience the most intensity. They're the ones who felt the most at ease. And the woman who understands how to create that ease becomes someone a man doesn't just desire, but deeply values. One of the most eye-opening things that came from listening to 30,000 men was how little they cared about perfection and how deeply they responded to confidence, not loud confidence, not performative confidence, but quiet self-trust, the kind that says, I'm comfortable being here as I am. Many women believe satisfaction comes from doing everything right, from reading signals perfectly, from never making a mistake. But men revealed something very different. Perfection creates pressure, confidence creates connection. When a woman is focused on getting it right, she's often mentally elsewhere, checking herself, adjusting, questioning. And men feel that distance. It makes the moment feel controlled, even tense. But when a woman is grounded in herself, when she isn't apologizing for her presence or second guessing every move, energy shifts completely. The moment becomes natural, alive, shared. What men described again and again was this: the most satisfying experiences were with women who were comfortable in their own skin, women who weren't trying to impress, women who weren't chasing approval, women who trusted themselves enough to simply be present. That self-assurance is magnetic because it removes pressure from both sides. Confidence sends a powerful message without saying a word. You don't have to impress me, I'm already here. And that message allows a man to relax. When he relaxes, he connects more deeply. When he connects more deeply, satisfaction follows naturally. Interestingly, many men admitted that when a woman is confident, they become more attentive, more emotionally available, more invested, not because she demanded it, but because her calm certainty made them want to rise to the moment. Confidence doesn't dominate, it invites. And here's the part that most women find freeing: confidence is not about experience. It's not about looking a certain way. It's not about knowing everything. Confidence is about self-acceptance. It's about not shrinking, not apologizing, not over-explaining. It's about trusting that your presence alone has value. Men repeatedly said they were far more drawn to a woman who owned herself than one who tried to be perfect. Perfection feels distant. Confidence feels real, and real creates connection. This is why comparison is such a confidence killer. The moment a woman starts measuring herself against an imaginary standard or another woman, she disconnects from herself, and men feel that disconnection instantly. Confidence, on the other hand, keeps her grounded, it keeps her present, and presence is where intimacy deepens. A confident woman doesn't rush the moment. She doesn't seek validation through reactions. She allows the experience to unfold naturally. And that calm certainty creates a sense of trust that men find incredibly satisfying. What's powerful is that confidence is a choice. It's the decision to stop auditioning and start showing up. And when you make that shift, everything changes. Not just how men respond to you, but how you experience intimacy yourself. Now I want to hear from you in the comments. Tell me this. Have you ever noticed a difference in how men respond when you feel confident versus when you're overthinking? Or if you're working on confidence right now, what's the hardest part for you? Write it below. I read them, and chances are another woman needs to hear your answer too. Because the moment you stop chasing perfection and start trusting yourself, that's when everything becomes more powerful. One of the most unexpected patterns that emerged from listening to 30,000 men was this: the moments that stayed with them the longest weren't the most intense ones. They were the slowest, the moments where nothing was rushed, where there was no urgency to get anywhere, where time seemed to stretch instead of shrink. In a world that constantly pushes speed, fast attraction, fast chemistry, fast results, slowness feels almost rebellious. But men revealed something powerful: when intimacy slows down, it doesn't lose intensity, it gains depth. Many men described how rushing creates pressure. Pressure to perform, pressure to reach an outcome, pressure to keep up, and pressure pulls them out of the moment. Slowness, on the other hand, invites presence. It gives a man permission to fully arrive emotionally, not just physically. When a woman is unhurried, she communicates confidence without saying a word. She signals, I'm not anxious. I'm not chasing a result. I'm enjoying this moment with you. That energy is grounding, it settles the nervous system, and once a man feels grounded, his attention deepens. Men spoke about how rare it was to experience this kind of connection, where they didn't feel pulled forward, where they weren't being rushed through an experience. Where anticipation was allowed to build naturally, and when anticipation builds, desire becomes richer, not louder, but more meaningful. Slowness also creates space for awareness. When things aren't rushed, a man becomes more attuned to you, to himself, to the connection between you. He notices more, he feels more, and that heightened awareness is what turns an ordinary moment into something memorable. What's fascinating is that slowness isn't passive, it's intentional, it's choosing presence over momentum. It's allowing silence without rushing to fill it. It's staying connected instead of jumping ahead mentally, and men feel that intentionality deeply. Many men admitted that when a woman slows things down, they feel more valued, not because she's withholding, but because she's choosing to savor. And that makes a man feel like the moment matters, like he matters. This is where slowness becomes incredibly seductive. It builds trust, it builds emotional safety, it builds desire without pressure. And desire that builds slowly doesn't disappear quickly, it lingers. Slowness also changes how a man remembers the experience. Fast moments blur together, slow moments stand out. They leave emotional fingerprints. Men recalled specific women not because of what happened, but because of how unhurried and present the experience felt. And here's the part that most women don't realize: slowing down doesn't mean doing less. It means feeling more. It means allowing connection to unfold at its own pace instead of forcing it forward. That shift alone can transform how deeply a man connects. By the end of these conversations, one thing became clear. The men who felt the most satisfied weren't chasing intensity, they were craving depth. And depth only happens when there's time to breathe inside the moment. So if there's one takeaway here, it's this: when you slow down, you don't lose power, you gain it. You turn attraction into connection. You turn moments into memories. And you create an experience a man doesn't rush away from because he doesn't want it to end. And this sets the stage for what comes next, because once slowness creates depth, something even more powerful begins to happen. The kind of bond that doesn't fade when the moment is over. That's what we'll talk about next. There's one thing the men in this conversation struggled the most to put into words. It was this: they don't feel deeply appreciated very often. Not in the way that reaches them emotionally. And when they do feel it, it changes everything. Appreciation isn't praise, it isn't flattery. And it's not telling a man he's impressive. What men described was something quieter and far more meaningful. The feeling that their presence mattered, that they were valued not for what they provided, but for who they were in that moment with you. When a man feels appreciated, his nervous system settles, he feels safe, he feels grounded, and from that place, connection becomes effortless. He's not trying to earn approval. He's not wondering if he's enough. He's simply there with you, and that emotional availability is what turns closeness into something memorable. Many men admitted that without appreciation, even strong attraction fades quickly. They leave moments feeling unsure, disconnected, or replaceable. But when appreciation is present, even subtly, they leave feeling anchored, and that feeling doesn't disappear. It follows them, it draws them back. What's powerful is that appreciation doesn't require you to give more. It requires you to notice more, a moment of warmth, a sense of ease, a presence that says, I see you and I value this. When that message is felt, not forced, it creates a bond that doesn't need chasing or convincing. This is where everything we've talked about comes together. Feeling chosen creates confidence. Emotional safety builds trust. Confidence removes pressure. Slowness deepens intensity, but appreciation is what seals it. It's the emotional thread that turns moments into meaning. And here's the most important part: appreciation changes you too. When you shift from performing to appreciating, intimacy stops feeling draining. It becomes mutual, grounded, real. So as we close this conversation, I want you to take a breath and reflect, not on what you need to fix, but on what you already bring. Because the women who create deepest connections aren't trying harder, they're showing up more fully. Now I want to hear from you in the comments. Tell me which part of this video shifted something for you the most. Was it feeling chosen, emotional safety, confidence, slowing down, or appreciation? Write it out. When you name it, it becomes real, and another woman reading your comment may feel understood for the first time. If this conversation resonated with you, like the video and subscribe, not just for the algorithm, but as a commitment to yourself to stop guessing and start connecting with clarity and confidence. Because attraction isn't about doing more. It's about being present, intentional, and emotionally open. And when you understand that, you stop chasing connection. You become the place it wants to stay. I'll see you in the next one.